Welcome back to another Conversation with Love on the Backbreaker Media Network. We are proud members of Win Column Sports, proudly sponsored by Beercade YUG. And today, your host Spencer Love is proudly joined by what I can reasonably consider a co-worker at Backbreaker Media. I am joined by former Monster Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, one half of Tag Struggle, one half of the Sounds of Struggle podcast here on the network, Meniac. Welcome to Conversations with Love. How are you doing?
I'm proud to be here.
That's awesome. I'm excited. No one's ever been proud to be here. They're happy to be here. They're excited to be here. I'm happy you're proud to be here.
You threw out so many prouds. I got to be proud about something too. So I'm proud to be here.
I appreciate it, man, and thank you for joining me on the show. This has been it's been a long time coming. I mean, I mentioned earlier you're a member of Tag Struggle. We're going to get into that, obviously, but this has been in the works since I interviewed Chris Parrish, 4 or 5 months ago.
I probably have harassed you at least once a month since then.
100%. I've harassed you as well because I know I've still got to make my long-awaited debut on the Sounds of Struggle pod.
Absolutely.
Very excited for that, by the way, so just waiting for that message to come my way.
What are you doing next week? We'll talk after.
We'll chat. We'll chat in the post-show wind down. But thank you for joining me. Obviously, we're going to go over a ton here. You are, though, I guess one of the most talked about men in Edmonton wrestling right now, for lack of a better way to put it. And I know that that's the way I introduced last week's guest, Thaddeus Archer III. But you're another guy who recently debuted for a new company, actually debuting for our TA3's old promotion, Real Canadian Wrestling. So I guess let's start there. What made you make the switch, and why RCW?
I wanted to fight TA3. I wanted to punch him right in his smug face.
Oh, man, your timing is shit.
Just terrible. But hey, we both debuted in the same night, so that's cool, right?
100%. I can't wait for your inevitable PWA debut when Thaddeus Archer III makes his move over to MPW.
We're just making the rounds.
This is going to be a chase for years. This is going to be one of those Sting-Undertaker dream matches we never get to see.
And then we'll see a 20-year speed-up where we're just chasing each other around all over Edmonton, and it'll be Benny Hill music in the background. It's going to be great.
I can't wait. I actually can't wait. This sounds beautiful. TA3. We're 2 minutes into this, and the gauntlet has been thrown down. But you made the move to RCW. You were there. I'm bad with show names, but you debuted at RCW's last show in Edmonton in a hell of a debut. So
yeah, that actually shocked me. I wasn't expecting that well of a debut. I was expecting, I walk out, people are like, okay. I do tag, people are like, all right. Then I do struggle, and people are like, sure. And then just crickets. I was expecting that, so I was very pleasantly surprised.
Why were you, though?
I don't know. I don't know why I was expecting that. To be honest, a lot of self-doubt, I guess.
I was going to say, is it do you get a lot of pre-show nerves?
Oh, always.
Okay.
100% of the time. If you don't have nerves, then you're not doing it right.
Fair enough.
So it's, I personally think that I guess you could sum it up with, I think that's the way some of the promoters in the city think. I guess bought into it for a long time, that nobody goes to each other's shows, that everyone has their fans, and that is it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't expecting that much of a crossover. Very glad it was there. It made my transition seamless.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, especially working with someone as talented, albeit angry,
dastardly
as Sydney Steele.
Yeah.
The mischievous Sydney Steele.
I like that.
So it's, but he and I have worked together, worked against each other many times. So that was easy. Jump over there.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you about, how did you feel just the match overall went? Because it did seem like, as someone who's familiar with your work, but not, thoroughly ingrained with your work, it did seem like you guys had a ton of chemistry off the bat. So, you wrestled before, you know them?
Yeah, we actually, at one point, I was a part of the OWE in Lethbridge in Edmonton. Sydney Steele actually helped me win my first MPW heavyweight title.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah, we were a gauntlet of awesomeness at one point.
Very cool.
Before it really broke down and Parrish and I turned on him for,
what you'll claim is a good reason?
Well, I'm sure it was at the time, but I can't even remember what it was now. It's one of those, hey, it hasn't been 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. I can't remember what it was. So I'm sure at the time he did something that made me angry. So
the revisionist history of it?
Absolutely. It happened a year ago, so technically did it really happen?
Yeah. Very, very cool, man. So match with Steele goes over well, and it's very, very cool to me that, again, we'll get into it in a second here, but it's very cool to me that despite the fact that you and Parrish haven't tagged together all that often in the past little bit,
I know.
That I know you'll complain about it in a bit. That's why I prefaced it.
Oh, fair enough.
But how does it feel still seeing people that excited about not just yourself, but Tag Struggle as a whole?
I think it's validation that we're doing it right.
Yeah.
That not only, you know, doing our podcast, we started he being Parrish, had a ton of strong opinions. I had a ton of strong opinions.
You still do have a ton of strong opinions.
That's very true. But what better way to get it out than to just talk about it? And then we actually somehow get a following. And it was, I don't want to get all big-headed and say it was like Daniel Bryan, but the fans kind of turned us face.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't supposed to turn face, and then it was kind of thrust upon us because people were cheering for us so much, no matter what we were doing.
But isn't that the way you sort of want it? Again, I've never wrestled a day in my life, so I have no idea what goes into the booking or a turn or anything like that as far as the booking perspective. But is that not the way that you sort of want to be turned faces because you can't help it?
It's the easiest way to turn for sure. I mean, like, if I'm in a match and I'm doing back rakes, eye gouges, you know, pulling at the hair, and people are cheering it, it does make it hard not to kind of start to pander towards them.
Yeah.
So it's, and you know what, as much as I love being a heel, it's a lot of fun. Being a face is, in a different way, just as fun, if not more so.
Yeah. Why is that? I mean, obviously getting cheered is nice.
Everybody, you know, wants to get cheered. Everyone wants to have that validation from strangers, family, friends, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. But I don't know. It just, something about it, just having people, you know, almost, I think for me, it's being able to have people suspend disbelief and kind of eat it out of the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
I'm doing something stupid, making them laugh, they cheer for it, I do it again, and they cheer for it again. And just, it's kind of validates what you're doing, makes you like, yeah, I am doing it, people do like it, that's good.
Well, and especially when you're a guy, like, we talked a little bit about this, but you sort of reference yourself as a comedy wrestler, which a lot of people see as a bit of a taboo. Like,
you don't talk about it.
You don't do it. You don't, like you said yourself, you don't break kayfabe and you don't do comedy wrestling.
Yeah.
So, like, when you talk about validation, is it more so in a sense of, like, the tag team's doing it right, or as a comedy wrestler, like, this is something that is a valid form of wrestling? Like, for lack of a better way to put it, it's a lot like a guy like Joey Ryan flipping people with his dick.
Absolutely.
It completely validates it.
I think it's fantastic.
100%.
When I first saw it, I was like, this is going to do one of two things. It's either going to set the business back 100 years again, or this is going to revolutionize it. And I think it's revolutionized it, because suddenly people are doing all sorts of things. We talked about it in the Sounds of Struggle podcast, Priscilla Kelly.
Yep.
With the tampon. And then recently
I was just going to say she vomited.
To get the win. So, I mean,
isn't it cool? The thing, like, just a side note here, I love the fact that, you know, there's two people sitting in a booth at a bar and just shouting, oh yeah, and then she vomited, and you can see the people looking around at us.
I
love wrestling.
I love it. Wrestling is the greatest thing ever.
100%, man. But, sorry, to go back to it. So, yeah, Priscilla Kelly doing something like
that. And my favorite wrestler for the longest time, like, I'm, in the grand scheme of wrestling, I'm fairly new to it. I got hardcore into it in 2009. So
you and I are on about the same timeline, then.
And I mean, I will admit it. I'm not, I'd say, proud of it. I'm not proud of it. But I mean, the guy who got me into it was John Cena. Just, he's that larger than life character that I couldn't help but like.
Fair enough.
Like, he's got that charisma. He's got that thing,
that X factor, 100%. And it is tough to describe, but actually, my next edition of OTTR, we were talking about it a little bit, is what is the one intangible a wrestler needs, and you can make the same comparison with Roman Reigns, where, you know, maybe people didn't like him or people didn't react to him the way that people wanted to, or I guess the WWE, wanted him to be reacted to, but you can't deny the fact that now, you especially notice in his absence, like, Raw is missing a lot of charisma with that guy out, and a lot of, like, it. He just did, he had it, whether you were cheering him or booing him, he was an it guy.
And I think part of it was, it's the same thing with Cena, that, you know, he was kind of shoved down your throat, and therefore people don't like it. Like, don't tell us who to cheer for, we'll cheer for whoever we want. But, I mean, you're right, you can't deny that. He has it, Cena has it, Hogan had it, Rock and Austin had it.
Mm-hmm.
So there are, when you add them up, there are a lot of people who have it. But I mean, the grand scheme of things of, like, current who has it, there's only a couple.
100%. I mean, Seth Rollins is a guy that I'd put up there, but he's even still, as a guy who the internet wrestling community seems to absolutely does love, and rightfully loves. Like, he's still a guy who's working up to that. This match with Lesnar at Mania is going, I think, to establish him.
Yeah. It will give him it.
Exactly. But I think he is still a guy who, despite his Triple H match, despite a Royal Rumble, despite being one of my personal favorites, like, still needs to get there in a way that Roman Reigns never really did.
Yeah, and let's not forget the master of it, the one who will put you on the list, Chris Jericho.
Oh, the greatest of all time.
Greatest of all the time.
100%. He's your favorite as well?
Absolutely.
Beautiful,
Okay.
man.
Real quick, top 5. Who are they?
Jericho,
Okay.
I think... See, personal top 5 and my Mount Rushmore are completely different.
Oh, absolutely.
But Jericho
Absolutely.
is a personal favorite. Sami Zayn's a personal favorite.
Yeah.
Chelsea Green's a personal favorite.
Okay.
Tessa Blanchard is a personal favorite. And it's always tough when you get to the last one. This is where you really got to make the choices.
You can do like a 10-way tie for 5th.
100%. I'd be really good at that. You know, I feel like I've got to say Flair. Like, the guy was just too good.
Yeah.
You know, and he's Ric Flair. Like, how the hell else can I explain it other than he's Ric Flair?
I mean, I've thought about this many, many times. I think we even covered a podcast with Sound Struggle on it.
Yeah.
Another cheap plug.
Feel free to get him in. That's what this is for.
Perfect. I think I've done one from the 80s, done one from the 90s, done one from the 2000s. I've done one overall. Like, overall, number 1, Chris Jericho. Number 2, Macho Man.
Yep.
Number 3 is going to be very unpopular, CM Punk.
He'd be up there for me as well.
And
he
then
100% would.
Number 4 and 5 always change, but I think right now will probably be Edge and Kevin Owens.
I love them all. I really love them all. I've started to get, like, for me, I think Tessa Blanchard is the best female wrestler in the world right now. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And then Chelsea Green, like, man, I love me. Fantastic in ring. It's going to sound like I'm slagging her on that end, but, like, there's nothing I love more than a great character worker. And she's the best. She's the best in the business as far as I'm concerned, regardless of gender, regardless of promotion. Like, it's fantastic. The dedication she's got to it, like, she's got, like, broken Matt Hardy levels of dedication to it.
And I mean,
and
you have to
that.
be able to date Zack Ryder. Really?
If you can put up with that, no, I can't shit on Zack Ryder.
No, I like it.
The fact that guy went out of his way on Raw this week to point out that they spelled his name wrong on Raw last
and
week.
then spelled it wrong to himself?
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious.
You've got to love it. A guy like that, I've always got time in the world
for sure.
And that's where it sort of gets back to you is, like, I wouldn't say Zack Ryder's a comedy wrestler, but he's definitely a wrestler who excels in the aspect of comedy. You know
when
what
he
I mean?
did that Zetra Long Island story, that
was fantastic.
Awesome.
Another example of WWE shutting something down people love.
Oh, yeah.
We're sorry, Rusev.
Yeah.
But I think that it's very, very cool that you're really the first guy that I've had on this podcast that not only embraces sort of the comedy side of it, but actively pursues it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, luckily enough, I spoke with Nicole Matthews on one of my last editions of this, and she said as well that comedy was something that she took a lot of pride in because not everyone else can do it well. So is that sort of what brought you to it, or why did you get into that side of it?
Well, the way I saw it, early on, I'll actually give you the exact moments. Just starting to train, just debuted with MPW, starting a faction, joined a faction with raunchy Rick Jules, the Asian Adonis Kato, who I think just after that dressed up as a female in the women's division as Hurricane Katarina. That was a good time.
Oh.
And we were the Family Jewels. All of us had truck nuts around our neck. I was Meniac MD, the demonic surgeon from hell.
That's terrible and terrific all at the same time.
Exactly.
I love it.
So, and then I'll give him credit. Rick Jules showed me a match, which changed my perspective of everything. It was PWG 100, Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest comedy matches I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
It involves a test of strength, which turns into a thumb war, and test of strength that turns into an arm wrestling match. The spot that never ends, where they literally call it the spot that never ends, and then they breaking into a song of John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. It's fantastic. This is before Kenny Omega became the best wrestler in the world.
Like Kenny Omega,
yeah. Which, by the way, I think he could be on the list for my top 5 favorite as well.
Yeah.
But he is also part of one of my favorite tag teams of all time, which was a
Golden
one-off
Mother?
show
for
the same year, DDT 4, for PWG. It was him and Chuck Taylor. Chuck Taylor's another one of my favorite wrestlers of all time because of his comedy.
Yeah.
Like, they don't mind making fun of themselves. They don't mind being the butt of the joke to get the laugh. I know for a fact I am not the sports side of sports entertainment. I mean, I am an average build at best. Working on it, but average build at best.
Yeah.
So I bring the entertainment side of it. as a heel, I'll bring the I get chopped, I scream like a girl. I get chopped, I will literally flip upside down, land on my head in the corner. I've done that. I do something where I'll make myself look stupid to make the face look good. Or if I'm the face, someone will cheat to do something, I will do it back, but I'll do it better and bigger, more grandiose.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be the one that everyone's talking about, like, see what that guy did? That was stupid. But man, was that fun.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Fair enough, man. And then I guess the last question here before we head to break is that why you feel that you and Parrish complement each other so well? Is because
he's the sports, I'm the entertainer.
Yeah, not to put you under, but you talk like he goes on. Not he goes on, but we go on. He's a PWI ranked wrestler. He's 15-year veteran.
I want to throw out there, I've been PWI ranked every year he has. Since I joined OWE about 2015, I've been...
And that's what I was going to say.
I'm number 501. Always off. Always off by one.
That was one of the
Mr.
first
501.
That was one of the first things Parrish ever told me about you, is that you called yourself Mr. 501.
Yep.
And I love it, It's just a perfect example of not people covering each other's weaknesses, people highlighting each other's strengths.
Absolutely.
I think you guys are a perfect example of that. So when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about RCW, your time with MPW, and where Tag Struggle is going from here. Timestamp the podcast after today's big announcement.
Yes.
Thanks, Real Canadian Wrestling Management, for that one.
I have no comment.
When we come back on this week's edition of Over the Top Rope, that's the other one. Conversations with Love on the Backbreaker Media Network, a proud member of Win Column Sports.
If you like podcasts and you are listening to on Backbreaker Media, then you should listen to me, Chris Parrish,
and myself, Meniac,
and the Sounds of Struggle, because we are literally the most entertaining duo you'll ever come across in Western Canadian wrestling, baby.
We talk about things like wrestling
And other sports we like.
Like wrestling.
But we won't talk about other sports that we don't like, because it's not that kind of podcast.
Like wrestling.
I mean, we like hockey.
And wrestling.
And we like football.
And wrestling.
And we also like to drink beer.
While wrestling.
Well, not while wrestling, but while watching wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to get into a conversation with Meniac and Chris Parrish, then you need to tune into the Sounds of Struggle live on Backbreaker Media.
Every Thursday.
That's when we hope to drop, but sometimes Mike Malawany doesn't do his job right.
Or we're too drunk to forget.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah.
He can bleep out the swear word, because we weren't supposed to do that.
Oh,
But
I'll try not to swear. I can't do it.
Yeah. Let's face it, the two of us, we're real.
And spectacular.
And we're a little bit of all right.
Yeah.
Well, so strugglicious.
That we are.
That was kind of the key. Supposed to do strugglicious.
Oh, sorry, I'm drunk.
Yeah. So, if you don't want to listen to us, then no, you're stupid, because we're entertaining. And if you want to listen to us, then come listen to us on Backbreaker Media.
Yeah.
Later,
He said.
Later, bitches.
Welcome back to Conversations with Love, and thank you for listening to our message from Chris Parrish and Meniac of the Sounds of Struggle.
I sound so pretty.
We're joined by the man himself, one half of Tag Struggle, one half of the Sounds of Struggle, Meniac. We've talked a lot about RCW. We've talked a lot about your time there, your debut there. Let's talk about prior to RCW. Hell, let's talk about prior to Monster Pro Wrestling. Let's talk about young Meniac.
Young Meniac. He was an ignorant little twerp.
I feel like a lot of us were. Like, if any of my former teachers are listening to this podcast, they'd be like, Spencer was too.
Yeah.
Don't worry. But outside of Meniac the twerp, let's talk about Meniac the wrestler. What got you into... You've talked about John Cena being why you got into wrestling. What got you into being a wrestler?
Completely by accident. It's 100%
Really?
completely by accident. I actually... born and raised in Ontario. Don't hold it against me.
Poor guy.
Always.
We're sorry.
Yeah, me too.
It's all right.
So I moved out here by chance, literally on a whim, with negative $400 in my bank account because I needed to change. I needed to start over. A fresh start, if you will.
Yeah.
And I got out here, and there's independent wrestling. And I was like, what is this?
Was there not at the time in
There
Ontario? Because from
is-
all
there
I've been
is.
told, it's great in Ontario now.
big hub centers: Toronto,
Okay.
London, Kitchener, Ottawa.
Where in Ontario are you from?
Cobourg. It's
Okay.
a town an hour and a half east of Toronto. It's about the size of Fort Saskatchewan. It's a piddly little. It's a retirement town.
Okay.
Everyone from Toronto retires to Cobourg, then dies. A lot of morgues there.
Oh
A lot
man,
of them. It's a good time.
Big business.
Happy fun times there. Yeah.
so you're a comedy wrestler. Bring some joy to
Otherwise, I'll cry.
that dark life.
Otherwise, I will cry. So, moved out here and realized there's wrestling. It's $20. It's right here. I'm going to go. The first show I ever went to, I believe, was Force Pro Wrestling in Morinville when I first moved out there. And the first person on the show that I met and was introduced to was, well, he'll tell you it was Andre in the crowd, which, yes, I met him that show. But was a wrestler named Kevin Sane.
I know the name.
He wrestled PWA. He was
Okay.
a Storm graduate, wrestled PWA for years. He retired a few years ago, 2015 maybe.
Okay, yeah,
So-
because I feel like I haven't seen a ton of him.
No.
I've heard about him a
Yeah.
lot.
He actually branched out and actually he talked to me after the match. He came and asked me how the show went. Talked to me about it. I'm like, holy crap. And then he's like, well, PWA's having a show and we're doing a mini camp. And I'm like, I'm there. I
Very
didn't
cool.
didn't think that would ever be a thing.
Mhm.
So technically, the people that broke me into wrestling itself, Kevin Sane and Chucky Blaze. He was the one running the whole thing.
Very, very cool. Now,
Yeah.
you said, when was that? Sorry.
That was 2012.
Huh.
Yeah, so I started training before shows once a month in 2012. And did that for a bit. I think there's 3 or 4 shows they did that for.
Mhm.
And I decided one day, I got my whole super cocky new guy, people get in, they develop an ego. I did that before I even had a first match, so
Oh, good.
I think that was actually curbed very quickly, thanks to a very tall individual named Azrael.
Oh, man.
Because I was being told by Mr. Blaze and a few others, like, yeah, your bumping's really coming along, you're the best of the group, et cetera, and I'm like, that's awesome. And then I see Azrael, and I was like, Azrael, give me a choke slam. He's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, do it.
Why not?
And he goes, okay, I'm going to lift you up like this. Lifts me up. Okay. Lifts me up. Slams me down. Broken elbow. I reached back too much. I was not ready for it. It was described to me by a guy I trained with, Fernetico, that apparently when I went up for that choke slam, my eyes bugged out like the mask. I was terrified.
Dude, I'd be
And
terrified of Azrael standing on the ground beside him. He's a horrifying,
He's a tall
horrifying
individual.
man.
Yes.
In the best
So-
possible way. I don't
Yeah.
mean to put under his character.
No, it's
Horrifying man.
absolutely. So, boom, immediately broken elbow. So I'm out of action per se for a little while, and then right after that, they opened up their training facility, which was that dome in the south end.
Yep.
So they did 3 weeks of training there, and I did what I could, but it's my selling arm. It's a left arm. Everyone works the left arm in North America. I can't work because it's broken. So I did a lot of watching. And then that closed down after a few weeks. And here I am sitting going, well, I guess that was my time. Cool. Took a choke slam. That was cool. And then...
You got a cool story out of it pretty well.
And then Fernetico actually comes to me. He's like, hey, there's a place that actually still trains in Edmonton. Do you want to go? I'm like, absolutely. So we go December 27th, 2012. I am introduced to Massive Damage and Monster Pro Wrestling.
Mhm.
That's the first time I met Chris Parrish, Tyler James, pretty much all the staples back then. Corporal
A lot of the
Jackhammer.
guys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so like a lot of the guys that you would still call,
Yes.
even though a lot of them are no longer there, like the staple
Yeah.
MPW. crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where I started. And then I just started training with them. A few months later, I had my first match, and the rest is, as they say, history.
Very cool, man. Who was your first match against?
My first match was a tag team of myself and Kato. As I said earlier,
I'm
we
going to say with the truck balls.
Oh, we didn't do that. That was like the formation that night. So my
Okay.
first night was the formation of the Family Jewels. It was myself and Kato in a triple threat tag match against Sonic Insania and Mascara Diablo, now just Diablo. I can't remember what they called themselves. And then the other team was Kenny Doll and Crazy Corp.
Okay.
And I have no memory if it was a stipulation for a title, if it was just a match just because. It got thrown out anyways.
Yeah.
So it was a big schmoz, got thrown out, and that was that. That was
Because
my
why
first
would we
foray.
ever have a clean finish in Alberta wrestling?
Absolutely. That's where I started to really get in. that's where I first got the interaction with the crowd that got me hooked for life, which was described by Bobby Sharp, I think, the best. It's like the song Hotel California. You can check it anytime you like, but you really can never leave.
That song used to scare me as a kid for that line specifically. That
Yeah,
idea
that's
of never leaving a hotel horrifies me.
That's exactly wrestling. You can leave, but immediately you're like, I need to go back. And it's the truth.
Have you ever tried to take time off from
Yes.
wrestling? Okay.
Took 6 months off, 2014.
So I guess you did take time off. You
Yes.
didn't try to take time off.
I did, but it was about 6 months. It was, in short, trying to save a dying relationship with a woman who did not like wrestling. She thought it was beneath her. It was pathetic.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Yeah, that wouldn't work well.
No. So I tried to make it work, which I didn't even want it to work. I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I feel like once you hit that point, it's
So-
like, why not just,
It
like,
was,
it's fish or cut bait.
yeah, it was one of those that I did it because I thought it was what I was supposed to do.
Mhm.
So, and I think I needed it. I was getting a little beat up. I was doing a lot of that time going over to BC to Big West Wrestling, doing shows here in Edmonton. I was going down to Lethbridge a lot for PPW. So I was wrestling 2 to 3 times a month. I was sore fairly
Yeah.
consistently. So, but yeah, I took that 6-month break, then came back and haven't stopped since really. Besides work interrupting, shoot life,
Yeah,
shoot life
100%.
problems.
Fair enough, man. But now, when you bring up the schedule, now you're talking about with RCW, you're going to be wrestling 4 shows, 5 shows a month. Do you see that being, risk isn't the word I want to use, but is that something that you see as maybe I could back off again?
In theory, yes, but at the same time, no. I think now it's like back then I was doing. Guys would be like, "Hey, let's do a top rope, Tower of Doom, and you can be the second from the top, and then from that you can take a power bomb and do this and do that." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good."
Okay, let's do
I'm a
it
little
all.
smarter now.
Okay, that
where
makes
it's like
sense.
I'll actually sell the move. I will, take the time.
Fair enough. That makes sense. What would you say then, like, is the biggest thing over your career that you've learned about being a wrestler? I mean, don't be stupid is very good advice, but that's also very good advice in any profession.
Yeah, very true. Biggest thing is sell. Always sell. I think it was instilled in me a lot, like probably watching guys like Chris Parrish and that, they don't really have an injury, but they're doing, meet and greets, autographs afterwards. They're tearing down the ring. They're still limping from a leg injury that they supposedly got during the match. That's one thing I think that's, as well as being a comedy wrestler, I can get that sympathy for the fact that I've hurt myself enough over my entire body, broken elbows, broken hands, concussions, dislocated knees, sprained ankles, that I can actually, if someone works it, I know how it actually would hurt.
Mhm.
So I'm able to actually sell it.
Do you have any, like, formal MMA or jiu-jitsu or any sort of training like that outside of wrestling?
Played hockey and soccer. That's about it.
Very cool,
Yeah.
man.
It's in high school. I played almost every sport except for rugby and, ironically, wrestling.
That's
So-
very cool. There's not a lot of people I speak to on the podcast, or at least have spoken to, that are strictly, I guess, other sport outside of combat sports
Yeah.
athletes, which is cool to me because, I was lucky enough I have Mitch Clark on the show, and listening to him talk was very, very cool because obviously he's so well versed in the science behind combat sports.
The guy's an okay wrestler. Yeah.
At
He's
the
an
very
alright
least.
wrestler. Yeah.
Whereas yourself, like, do you ever find that was a disadvantage for you not having any formal training in something like that?
In a
Or
sense,
do you think that opened you up more because you didn't have any preconceived
in a
notions of what it was like?
In a sense, I felt like yes, it was a bit of a disadvantage because my chain wrestling was armed or get the arm ringer, hammer lock, headlock. That was about it. But
And you were proud as shit of it.
oh, absolutely.
100%.
I was doing that to like my non-wrestling friends. I was like, watch what I can do.
Look at this, guys.
Absolutely. And so, in a sense, yes. But I found that I went from not really knowing about wrestling to becoming one of probably the most hardcore fans you could be,
Mhm.
and taking in everything I could possibly find. I would watch people, and once I started training, you start watching, the lockups, the chain wrestling, the false finishes, stuff you would never even notice before. You're just enjoying the match. Suddenly now I'm noticing. I'm like,
Almost
Okay.
homework more so than just
Exactly.
watching a match at this point.
yeah.
And that's something actually even KJ, another one of the Monster Pro Wrestling graduates, let me know is like, once you start training, like, you're going to watch matches entirely differently.
I find it. I think I you had Pride on here.
Yeah.
I find it. What he said is very true. Is that it's hard to just suspend disbelief and enjoy matches now because you're always watching for what they're doing. You're not watching for a mistake, but you'll notice if they do.
Even like the smaller ones that the
Sometimes
quote-unquote casual fan
Yeah.
wouldn't notice.
And then things like that. But I'm always watching like that was cool. I wonder if I could tweak it to make them up. Something like that. Like the Glorious DDT. I was doing that in 2013.
Okay.
I mean, he might have been as well. I'm not super
Well
well
versed
versed
with
in TNA Bobby Roode, but I was doing that because I basically kind of modified the Educator, the one where Edge did his DDT finish for a while, but he did it where they end up landing between his legs. I did it beside him, and then later on I see Bobby Roode doing it, which I'm still convinced, and we talk about this all the time on Sounds of Struggle, coming out every Thursday on the Backbreaker Media Network.
Part of Win College Sports.
Absolutely. That we are both, Chris Parrish and I are convinced that Vince McMahon or someone in WWE watches and listens to what we say and then watches our matches, because there have been several things like that. That move suddenly becomes the Glorious DDT. There's several booking predictions that were like, this will happen. It could happen. And it happens word for word, as we said.
I was going to say, even as myself, like a casual wrestling fan, in his eyes, I assume. Like, there's been stuff where I've been like, no way. There's no. Like Kevin Owens getting thrown off the top of the cage at Hell in a Cell. I remember calling that as soon as the match was announced.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens is going to win. Nobody's going to like how he wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, the way that Becky Lynch won the Rumble. I called that spot for spot. She will take someone's spot, and she will go into the Rumble. She will win it. And I think, I said one of the last three would be Charlotte, she was the last one in the ring.
Of course.
So, spot for spot, ended up calling that. So I don't know if that's because I'm kind of have a better understanding of the inner workings of wrestling, or if I'm just getting lucky.
No, they're
more likely
to
they're
us.
listening. Absolutely.
Of all of the 40 people who will listen to us, I'm sure Vincent Kennedy McMahon is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which would be nice.
Him and then those three lovely fans in Denmark that we seem to get every week for the Sounds of Struggle, which is strange. I don't knock it. It's just strange.
The Sounds of Struggle.
Das Sounds of Struggle, y'all.
I love it. Or somebody's got like their internet settings completely fucked up.
That's very, very possible. If it was me hooking up, I'd probably be coming through Zimbabwe somehow. So that's just me.
Alrighty, man. Fair enough. Well, I guess one more question before we hit the commercial here on this week's edition of Conversations of Love. What do you think is next in your career in RCW? I mean, we're going to talk about it after the break, but I mean, we're going to talk a lot about your relationship with Parrish, with Tag Struggle, that sort of stuff. Let's talk about yourself specifically. RCW, why are you making the move there, and what are you, I guess, setting your sights on there?
The big reason making the move is my shoot life, where I'm not Meniac. I'm just Nick. Just an average, run-of-the-mill guy who works in the oil industry. I work shift work, days, nights, weekends. I can't make every show with MPW. I wouldn't be able to make my first show with MPW until July this year. And the last time I officially wrestled, which I don't know if you were there at the Retribution this past year, but you heard about my self-elimination, my Gail Kim exit.
Yes.
That was a lot of tension and just, let's say, bad vibes, I guess, of the way things were going, the way I didn't like it, how that feud for the heavyweight title built up and kind of, in my opinion, kind of didn't go the way it should have.
Yep.
I'm not the booker, so it's like, teach, that's what he wanted, so that's fine.
Yep.
But
I was there the night you lost the championship. Yep. I wouldn't hesitate to agree with you there.
But before that, I really don't count that as wrestling. I mean, I was in the match for 30 seconds and then in the Rumble for 3 seconds. The actual last time I wrestled was July, so it would be like basically a full year before I officially wrestled the full match.
Yeah.
So, based on that and the fact that the amount of shows that RCW is running, which I think is fantastic, they're going all over. They're doing a show in Bruderheim, which is, I think, door to door from my place to the show is 20 minutes.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And even like doing the show out in Radway, which was fantastic. They're doing an awesome job of really trying to.
They're almost like they're doing tours. Really?
Yeah, you're not wrong there. The big difference being like they do sort of have, to use the sports comparison, like they've got home games every couple times a month.
And going from not wrestling to July, not wrestling for a year, to wrestling from January till, as of right now, the end of April. I'm going to wrestle 5, maybe 6 times.
Awesome.
That's really the big draw, and a fresh start. There have been a few people that have jumped from MPW to RCW, but there are a good 10 brand new faces I had never even seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So fresh face,
but it's familiar but very different.
Exactly. I mean, this Saturday, or I guess this past Saturday, I'm wrestling Cameron Stevens. Never even heard of him up until I came over to RCW. I was kind of
and a talented guy, man.
Very talented. I watched him last show. Very talented. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to making the crowd laugh and hurting him in the most fun and degenerate ways possible.
Excellent, man. Well, when we come back on this week's Conversations with Love, CWL, we are going to chat about one of those recent ship jumpers, I suppose, if you want to call them that. We're going to get a little bit into what you guys plan to do, or at least what I assume you guys plan to do in RCW. Then we're going to wrap it up, because what else do you do at the end of a podcast? It will be the last segment. We're not going to give away too much here so that you actually listen to the last segment. So just listen to the last segment after this quick word from our friends at PowerSlam TV on Conversations with Love on the Backbreaker Media Network.
Are you tired of the same old pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 3,000 hours of the best pro wrestling events from over 100 of the biggest names in the industry from over 15 countries around the globe. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Welcome back to the latest edition of Conversations with Love, the 7th episode of Conversations with Love. I am your host, the namesake of Conversations with Love. I am Spencer Love, your host. Joining me is Meniac, the former Monster Pro Wrestling champion and current member of the Real Canadian Wrestling roster. You recently made your debut. We've talked about that a ton. Let's talk about another recent debut, because it's someone, we've talked a lot about Chris Parrish on this podcast. He's your co-host on the Sounds of Struggle podcast. He is your tag partner in Tag Struggle, and he is someone who this Saturday made his debut for Real Canadian Wrestling. I don't want to talk a ton about that because we do have the latest edition of Quick Calls up on the Backbreaker Media Network, so you can go and check it out there. But for me, I think the most interesting thing for me is what Tag Struggle can truly do, like you've said, with a fresh start. Because not to say that, I guess it may be for you to say how you guys were used in MPW. You guys didn't tag as often as even I would like, nonetheless, as you've said you would like. What do you guys see going forward for the two of you moving forward in Real Canadian Wrestling?
Well, hopefully wrestling more than once a year as a tag team. That'd
Still officially a tag team. That made you a Tag Team of the Year nominee.
Yeah, perfect. I just want to tag. I want to face some new teams. I want to keep showing that Tag Struggle is one of the top teams in this province.
Yeah.
And I'd like to actually be able to show that, not just say it. I'd like to actually be able to show all over where we go, like Vegreville, Bruderheim, Calgary. Maybe make some appearances down south and Lethbridge if I can, work permitting, shoot life permitting. I would like to get back to tagging. It's my bread and butter. It's what I started with, and regardless of any single success I've ever had, it's always come back to tag wrestling. Because you've announced me as the former heavyweight champion, which, by the way, former two-time heavyweight champion.
Pardon me?
Also, former two-time MPW tag champion. Inaugural winner of the, Renegade Memorial
Tag Team Tournament.
The initial winners.
Sometimes I just like you singing your own praises. I can't give you
that's
too big a head.
That's a lot of stuff in memory, though. So much has happened, so many hit shots to the head.
So many memories.
Yeah, exactly.
Gone.
So, I would like to do that. Tag team titles, that'd be nice, but really, tag team titles aren't the end-all, be-all for tag wrestling. Mm-hmm. I want to be... Best example would be one of my current favorite, or a couple of my current favorite tag teams is the Revival. It's them and the Young Bucks. They don't always have tag titles, but they're always the talk when they wrestle. On a side note, one of them is not being used right now. Hopefully that's rectified soon.
115%, my friend.
they have been my favorite tag team since their debut on NXT, and the rivals not being used.
No.
They're number one contenders now, so it's a step in the right direction. Let's hope they continue that way.
Completely agree with you there.
But I think tag wrestling and WWE, in my opinion, is a dying art because they just don't seem to have time for it. They're doing more stuff with the women, which I think is awesome. I love that. But they're doing that, and they're doing the heavyweight title picture. Everything else kind of gets thrown by the wayside.
100% agree with you there.
So,
What drove you? We talked a little bit about how you guys currently complement each other as a tag team, but you met Parrish, like you said, on December 27th, 2014.
12,
I believe.
2012. Yes.
There we are. Sorry, confusing my dates. What drew you sort of to him first, or I guess what drew him to you? Was there a natural connection off the bat? Was it always sort of...
Actually, there was. The first while I was there, I was tagged with, as I told you, Rick Jules. And
Yep.
I didn't have a ton of interaction. I talked with him in the back, but it wasn't really like an instant thing.
You got along, you weren't friends.
Yeah. And then I ended up doing my, as we talked about, my stint away, doing my sabbatical, we'll call it. And he was the one who convinced me to come back. And since then, we've pretty much been inseparable. For better, for worse. Mostly for my own headaches. But, I mean, it's been good. Mm-hmm. So it started with that. And we started tagging as part of OWE down in Lethbridge. And that transitioned to OWE Lethbridge and Edmonton. And then we kind of broke away from that and just became tagSTRUGGLE. Which... everything is basically, we throw out ideas. No idea is a bad idea. We can make anything work. Because, I mean, our finish is called the help. Because we want to help other tag teams see that we're the best. So it's definitely a 50-50 thing, which is, I think, nice. I don't feel like I'm just a part of something. This is my thing. This is his thing. It's our thing.
Yeah. Why do you think... like, what were the circumstances as far as him being the guy to bring you back? Like, did he just see something in you at that point? Or... like you said, you were friends even then. You're friends now. But was it just something in him inspired you to come back to wrestling?
He actually reached out when I wasn't there, asked me to come back. So he went above and beyond to check on how I was doing and wanted to know if I wanted to come back, what it would take to come back. He kind of opened the door again.
Okay.
So he's always been the kind of the. I've been his confidant. He's been mine. We talk and we. If something's not going quite right with wrestling, we talk about how we can improve it, how we can change it, bounce ideas off each other all the time. We're kind of yin to each other's yang.
100%, man, and that's evidenced. You've brought it up a couple of times, but it's evidenced very well on the Sounds of Struggle podcast. You talked again a little bit about it. Let's talk a lot about it. How did that one come about?
He'd been wanting to do a podcast. We started in end of 2016 or beginning of 2017. I think it was end of 2016. Yeah. So we've been doing it for 2 years.
I was just going to say, you guys just had episode 113, I think, just came out. Yeah. So, yeah, we've been doing it for a hot minute. To say the least.
Yes. Or as we call it, a horny hour. What's better than a hot minute? A horny hour. And he'd been talking about doing it, I think, almost all of 2016. That's when podcasts, in my opinion, I think really started to explode, especially in
the
Alberta.
wrestling industry.
But, it really started to come into Alberta. I think 2016 people actually started to do podcasts. So from there, he was talking about doing them for the longest time, and I was like, I'm really getting into podcasts. It'd be fun to do. And then I actually harassed him for a good couple months until he's like, you know what? Why don't we just do it? Okay, done. And then it started. I think I listened to our first episode a few months ago. It's brutal.
Oh, man, Hayden corrected me on this yesterday. It was a week ago, about a week ago, that the first anniversary of the first episode of Over the Top Rope came out. And the same thing, I listened to it. So a solo podcast because Hayden wasn't able to be there for episode 1. And man, was it bad. It is so bad. It's me sitting in front of like this same computer, using the computer microphone to pick up my thoughts on Ronda Rousey signing with WWE, as if someone out there was like, there's all this real professional coverage of this happening. Yeah. Let's listen to a random dude in Edmonton, Alberta talk about it.
And that's kind of like what we did. We wanted to get our thoughts on wrestling in particular, but also we're both big hockey fans. I'm a Blackhawks fan. He's an Oiler fan. So we have, 3 times a year, we have a rivalry. We have beer bets. I have not once won a beer bet. We'll hear in this past week's edition of Sounds of Struggle, episode 113. Go listen to it now. We'll wait. And welcome back.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Conversations of Love.
There we go. So we actually, because of how overall poorly our teams are doing this year, we had a beer bet against our own teams. And as we saw, the Blackhawks decided, hey, we can't have you actually win the bet, so we're going to win 6-2, and therefore you lose the bet. So there's that.
Nicely done.
Right?
Or
was
very
okay with it.
poorly done. Like, I don't know what your night was like last night.
I was very happy with it. I'll take losing a beer bet for them winning a game any day of the week.
Fair enough, man. It's very, very cool to me that even I've never introduced two halves of a tag team or anything along those lines, so it's very cool for me to sort of hear the relationship behind it. When you guys are going in and approaching a match, like, how do you approach a match differently when you're in a tag team versus when you're wrestling on your own?
Besides the obvious that there's 4 instead of 2 people, in my opinion, there is so much more you can do.
Mm-hmm.
As a heel, like, you can do so many false tags, false hope spots, there's breaking up pins. There's just so much more that can be done with an extra 2 guys. The psychology it's different, but at the same time, it's not that different, really. It's just you have to incorporate 2 other bodies in there, which gives you opportunity to do a lot more things. You can hit more devastating moves because someone can break it up. You don't have to kick out.
Yep.
So it's, in my opinion, I think it's just, I don't know what it is. Everyone always wants to be, the world champion, the heavyweight champion, whatever the case. I want to be a tag champion.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, you've heard that echoed with Edge and Christian, the Hardys, the Dudley Boys. But I've always thought tag team wrestling is more fun to watch because more things can happen.
Are those sort of the guys who drew you to tag team wrestling initially, or?
Ironically enough, I said I got into wrestling in 2009 as John Cena.
Yeah.
The first ever match I remember watching was, when was TLC 2? Was that Anaheim? Was that 2000 or was that 17?
Oh man, I think 17.
Okay, that was the first match I remember ever watching.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things for my hockey team growing up, we would always do the pay-per-view nights. Bring people over, and usually the coach's son, who was the goalie, would bring people over and we'd watch the pay-per-views. I don't remember any of them except for the one part where it was Jeff Hardy on the giant ladder in front of the ring doing a swanton bomb through 2 tables onto, I think it was Spike and Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I remember of that entire card. And that was a good card. WrestleMania 17 was a good show.
One of the best.
Exactly, and that's all I remember.
There's no way to debate it.
But we were getting ready for the playoffs. We were doing this thing where everyone dyed their hair blonde. Mine came out orange. I had an orange mushroom cut. It was awful. I mean, it's hard to believe now it's no hair, but that's not the point.
We all shaved our heads into mohawks for a lacrosse team.
Well, there you go.
So you and I both have an equal amount of awkwardness as far as our hair decisions when we were younger.
So, and then we would watch that. But that was my first thing. And my parents thought, well, that seems to be too violent. Because we didn't actually have the channel to watch it growing up, so it wasn't really an issue. But if I ever went over to Uncle and Aunt's place who had it, I remember staying there for a night before school because my parents were away for a trip or something, and they wouldn't let me watch. So I never really got a chance to actually watch till I was in college.
Really?
Yeah.
Even my parents, they, I guess, never noticed really when we were watching wrestling when we were younger, just for the fact that I'm sure you had a computer room when you were younger, as all kids did.
Kind of, yeah.
Or all
Just in
people
the family room, but yeah.
Yeah, same sort of thing. You had to go to a specific room to use the computer.
Yeah.
Our TV was in there as well, so same sort of thing.
Next to the landline, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Hang up the phone. I need to use the internet.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it. But same sort of thing was I'm sure this isn't to slag them, but I never really got my love of wrestling from my parents.
No.
It's always interesting to meet others who have a similar experience, because you always meet, I'm sure you have as well, a ton of people who say, oh, it was my parents who got me
Or
into
grandparents or uncles
yeah,
or aunt or something.
is there anybody you'd specifically, who was your wrestling buddy when you were younger?
No.
You didn't
Not
have
a single
any?
person. Because after that one match at WrestleMania 17, I didn't watch it until 2009, and I found it literally flipping through the channels while I was at school. Going to school for paramedic. I was flipping through the channels, I found that, and it was... There it is.
So what's your first, outside of Cena, your first clear memory of wrestling around that? What
Around
got you
that time?
hooked?
It was probably that time it was Cena was champ, and they were going into, I think, Survivor Series, and it was a triple threat of DX and Cena for the WWE Championship. And I think DX's promo and then Cena coming out and interrupting. I also vaguely remember 2010, it was Sheamus's champ, and They were trying to decide who was going to be the number one contender, and Cena goes to put Orton through a table, and Orton turns it into an RKO. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yep.
I actually, at the time, had no idea what the hell happened because I didn't know what an RKO was. Then I watched the replay, and I'm like,
It's because
that's
they come
cool.
out of nowhere.
They literally come out of nowhere.
I guess final question before we move into the, man, I hate the word, but the quick fire segment of the show. What's next? I know we've talked a little bit about RCW specifically, wrestling overall. Like, what are your goals with it?
I want to take over RCW as the tag team. I want to take over RCW as the comedy wrestler and as everyone will have heard this past Saturday, as the move thief. I want to be the guy who steals everyone's moves.
Love it. Love it. Your finisher, my friend, is a people's elbow. It is one of my favorite finishers in real Canadian wrestling.
Match, yeah,
I love it. Yeah, that's fair, I guess. And it wasn't used as a finisher because it did not finish. But the last time I watched you wrestle, it was also there.
Yeah, I just try to steal moves that everyone can relate to. I've done hot comebacks that involve choke slams and pedigrees, and then I've also done the ones that you've seen where it's rock bottom, people's elbows. I've done stunners, you name it, big moves. I've done it, except
Love it,
for
man.
anything flying because I can't fly.
Well, all right, we got a couple minutes left here on this conversation of love, so a couple quick questions. We leave the answers on this to less than 30 seconds because as we learned the first time we did this, there's just some shit that has to be explained. I mean, the one specific question I had with this was, what do you think of the WWE writers? And it's like, oh, they're great, but I can't realistically give them an 8 because sometimes they're terrible.
Not every idea flies.
All right, so I'm going to ask you here, right now, who's your favorite opponent you've ever had and why?
Favorite opponent ever had? Pain. A tag team of Pain consisting of Irishman and Crazy Corey. Because they are two big men who fast, hard-hitting, and they're game for anything.
Worst bump you've ever taken?
Luger rack roll.
It makes me laugh. I'm sorry. I watch that. Like, it's one of those moves that I watch and I say there's no way, not to not take it safely, but there's no way you take that without pain.
Exactly.
100%. And even in its best iteration, it's got to hurt.
Yeah.
Who is your least favorite opponent you've ever faced, if you feel comfortable naming?
West Coast Warrior.
Why is that?
Someone go find the match from Big West Wrestling 2013. It's May Days. You'll see. It was my first ever singles match, and it was, to put it bluntly, an abortion. and I'm not putting that on fully on me because even though I was new, it was terrible. I knew back then.
It was bad on everybody's end.
It was bad.
If you weren't currently tagging with Chris Parrish, who would you be tag teaming with?
Pac?
All right. Excellent choice.
A
very Chris Parrish-esque looking guy.
Yeah. I need someone's long hair to complement my no hair,
so that you've got like an average, like if we were to take a poll of two members of Tag Struggle, you have an average amount of hair.
Exactly.
Between the both of you.
Exactly.
I love the way you think things, Meniac. Finally, if you could give, and I know you're going to hate this because I'm sure you've answered it before, if you could give a piece of advice to one guy or girl looking to get into wrestling, what would it be? Because you got into it in a very unconventional manner. A lot of people that I've spoken to on this have said, I went out, I wanted to be a wrestler, I found a school, I started training. So someone who wants to approach it maybe...
Biggest thing I would say personally is you don't always have to go the conventional route. You don't always have to find we'll give an example, the Dudley Boys or Lance Storm reputable school. You don't have to give up 3 months and all you do is wrestle. You can find a school where you learn on the weekends. You can find a school where it's, a couple times a week, you go for a couple hours or before a show. Because there are some guys who are backyarders who became the big, they got to the show. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't always have to be the conventional route. But most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, be forever humble. Always be the guy or the girl. You show up, you shake everyone's hand. Even if you don't like a person, you're polite, you are professional, you don't ever get upset about doing the job. You don't ever get upset about, you're not getting the title right now. Someone else is getting the title. Work harder.
Yep.
Be humble. Shake hands. That's the best advice I can give because no one can be mad at somebody who stays like that.
Fair enough, my friend. Well, as we close out this week's edition of Conversations with Love, let us know where we can find you. We know we can find you on the Backbreaker Media Network, proud members of Win Column Sports. Where else can we find Meniac if we need a little taste?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything at WrestleManiac. And then, yes, we have the podcast, Sounds of Struggle. Comes out roughly every Thursday, depending on when we decide to drink and do them. Also, Moment with Meniac is episode 2 just came out. It's every other Sunday. Check that out. We just recently did a fight companion style for the Men's Royal Rumble.
And it was terrific.
I'm hoping to do more. I'm hoping to do more with more people.
Well,
maybe
if that's an invite.
I don't know what you're doing for Elimination Chamber, but I mean...
You know what? I will have to say that I would love to join you, and if we want to shoot the episode, we will have to shoot it at Beercade YEG, the home of Edmonton Wrestling and your official sponsor of Over the Top Rope and Conversations with Love.
You took the bait. Good,
I know, right?
Good plug.
Nicely done. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you guys. First of all, before you guys don't forget, we want to remember on our end, thank you, Meniac, for appearing on the podcast, man. Like I said at the start, it was long overdue. I've wanted to have you on here for forever. It's been a blast, and it's been a blast starting to watch you start your wrestling career with RCW. As you move forward with it, I'm more excited to continue to watch you develop, and especially as Tag Struggle starts to make their impact known in real Canadian wrestling. You're going to keep making a bigger impact on Alberta and wrestling overall because you guys are too talented to be kept down for too long, man. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you. And I am proud to be on here.
You're very proud, and we are proud to be giving the podcast a bit of Alberta flavor, as we always try to here on Conversations with Love. Don't forget, we are proud to be members of the Backbreaker Media Network, just as Meniac is proud to be here. And Backbreaker Media is a member of the WinColumn Sports Network in and of itself. Don't forget, tune into WinColumn Sports for all your previews, reviews, and breaking news in Albertan wrestling and wrestling overall when we decide to talk about it. I have been your host, Spencer Love, the host of Conversations with Love, the host of Over the Top Rope, and tune in next week when I host the next edition of CWL on Backbreaker Media.